Have you ever scrolled through Instagram, seen someone your age driving a new Range Rover, holidaying in Bali for the third time this year, renovating a Bondi apartment, and thought to yourself, how on earth are they affording all of this? Because the maths just doesn't add up. You earn a decent wage, maybe even more than them, and yet your account balance tells a very different story. Well, here's the truth that nobody on your feed wants to admit. Most of them aren't actually rich. They're broke. They're just broke in designer clothes. In 2026, Australia is sitting on one of the highest household debt levels in the developed world. The average Australian household now owes around 210% of its disposable income. For every dollar a family takes home after tax, they owe roughly $2.10 to someone else. And according to the latest ADP research, around half of Australian workers are living paycheck to paycheck right now, even with employment near record highs. A separate survey found that 42% of Aussies have less than $1,000 in savings. One broken transmission, one dental emergency, one missed shift, and the whole illusion collapses. So, how are they doing it? How is your neighbour with the same job as you somehow affording the boat, the BMW, and the kitchen renovation? They're borrowing the lifestyle. According to the Australian Bureau of Statistics, personal loans hit a record $5.1 billion in the first quarter of 2026 alone. Credit card debt accruing interest has now passed $20.5 billion nationally, with the average cardholder carrying $1,674 on interest charging balances, and the average card charging more than 18%. And by now, pay later usage climbed to 34% of Australians in January 2026. 1 in 3 people are now splitting their groceries, their clothes, even their kids' birthday presents into 4 payments. And here's where the psychology gets really sharp. Social media has rewired how we measure success. You used to compare yourself to your street, your suburb, maybe your cousins. Now you're comparing yourself to a global highlight reel that's been curated, filtered, and in many cases, financed. The Range Rover in that reel might be on a 5-year novated lease that eats 18% of the driver's take-home pay. The Bali trip might be sitting on 3 different afterpay accounts. The renovation might be a redraw against a mortgage that's already in stress territory. The latest Roy Morgan data shows 28.2% of Australian mortgage holders are now at risk of mortgage stress in 2026, with around 1.6 million households on the edge. There's a term researchers use for this. It's called lifestyle inflation, and it's the reason high earners stay broke. Every time income goes up by 5%, spending tends to go up by 7. The cruel part is that the person earning 80 grand and the person earning 180 grand often end up with the same net worth, because the second person spent the extra 100,000 trying to look like someone who earns 300. And it gets worse when you look at how this plays out across an entire career. A 25-year-old who saves and invests $500 a month into a low-cost index fund could realistically have over $1.5 million by the time they hit 60, just from compounding at average market returns. That same person, if they instead upgraded their car every 3 years and financed every holiday, could easily retire with less than $200,000 outside their super. Most Australians never see this gap until it's too late to close because it widens slowly, one afterpay purchase and one car upgrade at a time. Now, this is the moment most people get defensive. They'll say things like, well, life is meant to be enjoyed. And yes, it absolutely is. Nobody is suggesting you live on rice and regret. But there's a difference between enjoying your money and performing wealth for an audience that doesn't pay your bills. Real wealth doesn't need a caption. It doesn't need a hashtag. It sits in an ETF, compounding at 8 to 10% a year, while the fake rich crowd is paying 22% interest on a holiday they're still tagged in 2 years later. So what does real money actually look like in Australia in 2026? It often looks boring. It looks like a paid-off Toyota Camry parked outside a modest 3-bedroom home in the outer suburbs. It looks like someone who packs their lunch 4 days a week and tops up their super by an extra $50 a fortnight without telling anyone. The wealthy Australians worth studying are almost never the loudest ones. They're the ones who understand that every dollar spent on appearances is a dollar that can't compound into freedom. And freedom is really what this whole conversation is about. Because when you strip away the cars and the watches and the resort photos, what most people are actually chasing isn't stuff. It's the feeling of being respected, the feeling of being enough, the feeling of having made it. The tragedy is that buying that feeling on credit produces the exact opposite outcome. You end up more anxious, more trapped, more dependent on the next paycheck than you were before. The Range Rover doesn't free you, it chains you to your job. The renovation doesn't impress your friends, it just doubles your repayments. And the holiday you couldn't really afford comes home with you in the form of a balance that takes 14 months to clear. There's also something deeply unfair about how this illusion spreads. The people pushing the loudest lifestyle content online are often the ones with the most to gain from you copying them. Influencers get paid by brands every time you click. Lenders make billions every time you finance something you couldn't otherwise afford. Car dealerships hit their monthly targets because someone on TikTok made a Hilux look like a personality trait. You are not just being influenced, you are being monetized. And the moment you understand that, the spell starts to break. Because every flashy post stops looking like aspiration and starts looking exactly like what it is, which is an advertisement dressed up as a lifestyle. Here's the takeaway from this video, and it's something genuinely worth carrying with you. Stop competing with people whose finances you've never seen. The bloke with the new ute might be 3 months behind on his car loan. The couple with the renovated kitchen might be drowning in interest. The influencer with the Maldives content might be sponsored, gifted, or in debt up to their eyeballs. You are comparing your full financial picture with all its pressures and decisions to someone else's marketing campaign. And it's a game you cannot win because the rules are rigged. Instead, build your own private scoreboard. Track your net worth once a month. Watch your emergency fund grow from 1,000 to 10,000 to 6 months of expenses. Watch your super balance climb. Watch your debt fall. These are the numbers that matter. Nobody will like a photo of them. Nobody will comment with fire emojis. But in 10 years, you'll be the one with options, while the fake rich crowd will still be refinancing the same lifestyle they were performing back in 2026. The Australian dream isn't dead. It's just been hijacked by people selling you a version of it that requires you to stay in debt forever. The real version, the one that actually delivers freedom, is available to almost anyone willing to opt out of the comparison game. Earn well, spend deliberately, invest consistently, and let the years do the heavy lifting. That's it. That's the whole formula. It's not sexy, it's not exciting, and it will never trend on TikTok. But it works. And it has worked for every generation of wealthy Australians long before Instagram existed. So the next time you see someone living a lifestyle that can't quite be explained, don't ask how they're affording it. Ask whether they actually are. Because more often than not, the answer is sitting in a credit card statement they hope you'll never see. If this hit home for you, do me a favor and hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. I'll see you there.